Hi, my name is Connor Mead, and I'm here today at the 2017 Canadian Science Policy Conference. And joining me right now is Marc LePage, the President and CEO of Genome Canada. Marc, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So to get us started off, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Genome Canada, what makes it unique and what makes it important.
Yeah, so Genome Canada is the funder of a Genomics program, large-scale research in health, which is probably everybody's got that one sorted out. But we're also very active in forestry, agriculture, fisheries, the environment. So we have quite a diverse portfolio. The common thread in all of this is the study of DNA across anything that's living. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what are some of the promise that genomics has to change our society and change our economy?
Yeah, so I think most viewers will be familiar with the Human Genome Program, which was, in a sense, the public coming out of this, and this was in the first human genome was completed in 2000. And I think for the last 10 years, a lot of work has been done on basic science, and now we're evolving into applications. We're starting to understand the human genome, so it's starting to affect how we treat patients. So for example, in cancer or oncology, each patient has a different genetic makeup, and a drug that is highly efficient for one individual will not be working for the next. So genomics helps us sort out which drug for which patient. In agriculture, it's a completely different story. So there we're working on things like crops that'll have natural drought-resistant traits. So as we head unfortunately, into climate change and much more severe drought cycles, we're either going to have to use chemicals and spraying, or we're going to have to develop plants that are more naturally able to survive these extremes in weather patterns. And the latter is the more environmentally appropriate option. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So the hot topic of the day, the hot topic of most days, in recent memory, has been superclusters.
Yes.
So how do we as a country facilitate and foster innovative ecosystems in Canada?
Yeah. And I think the logic of the superclusters is great, where instead of working, and if you want, with one firm or 2 or 3 firms, we try to regroup a lot of people who have an interest in a broad area, and that you, in a sense, bring a supply chain up and down and try and get more coordination. It's the kind of thing that has been fantastic and is very successful in Silicon Valley or in the Boston area or Austin. And I think the network, they call it the network effect, brings a lot of value over and above what each individual firm and partner in the enterprise is likely to bring. And you get things turning over more quickly, programs being more ambitious. So I think that's the promise of the superclusters. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how does the supercluster approach differ from previous Canadian innovation policy?
I think the primary difference is that there's an effort now to bring networks together as opposed to helping or working with individual firms. So I don't think people have stopped working with the individual firms, but we've really put an effort now at kind of one level up in building the network and cementing the network where there's cohesion and where there's, in a sense, a common interest across all these partners. And it's an interesting policy experiment. It's ambitious. It's not easy, but done well, I think this should increase the growth rate and I would say, the technology content in our companies, which is an important issue for Canada.
Absolutely. So what do you think are some of the key characteristics of doing it well?
Well, I think there are a number of key characteristics. One is finding people who have a common interest, and a real common interest that binds them all together, so that your interest as a firm is also the interest of your neighbor or your supplier, so that everybody rises with the enterprise. And it's something I have to say we see in our area when we do genomics research. You can't do genomics research in a small scale. You have to have multidisciplinary approaches to this. So it's kind of a scientific cluster. These superclusters is kind of that at times 10, if you want, another level. But you see the benefits of multiple skill sets, multiple roles in the enterprise, and the whole thing brings everybody together. You can go further together than if you did your thing individually.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, I know you also spoke on a panel on science culture.
Yes.
So I wonder if you could share your thoughts on what is the state of Canada's science culture?
Yes.
How has it changed in recent times, and what do you see as the future?
Yes, I was very fortunate to participate on a panel put together by the Council of Canadian Academies, and the question was, what is the state of Canada's science culture? So not Canada's scientists, but your everyday Canadians, or our uncles, or fathers, or mothers, our brothers, and we worked at this long and hard, and when of course you compare yourself to other countries, and if I can go right to the punchline, the surprising conclusion, I think for many of us, was that actually the state of Canada's science culture is fantastic. Canadians are engaged, they're interested, they participate, they go to science museums, they help their kids with homework. These are all expressions of a general science culture. And I think we should be very proud as Canadians that actually everyday Canadians are interested, are participating, are engaged. And in fact, as we came to the conclusion of this study, we were surprised at how well we stacked up relative to the European countries, Sweden, Germany, the US. It's more democratic in the sense that more people seem to share in this interest. And it almost leads you to believe that Canadian citizens are ahead of the political class or the bureaucratic class. They are more engaged in science than we assume, and that's quite a positive statement. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of Canada's fantastic science culture,
yes.
What are your thoughts and impressions so far for the Canadian Science Policy Conference? What do you see as the primary value that we get from this event?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's the 10th anniversary, and every year has gotten better. And I would say what's striking to me is how the panels are more and more relevant to big policy issues that we're dealing as a country. And so the programming draws in more people, and you bring different thoughts around issues, climate change, innovation policy, economic growth, equity, northern versus urban development, all these issues. So the thought leaders on these big questions are brought together. The discussions are much more structured and organized, and kind of bring you to what should we do, what's the next step, kind of thing. And I think that's the genius of the conference. So I want to congratulate the conference organizers for having really tweaked and refined the formula. It's really exciting to be here right now.
Thank you. That's very kind. And thank you so
welcome.
much for joining us for this fantastic interview. I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
And I hope you have a fantastic dinner and reception tonight.
Merci beaucoup. À la prochaine.